Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, AI Tools for Virginia Farmers, What Works, What It Costs, and Where to Start, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We also have two opportunities, for in-person events coming up. Agripalooza, where technology meets tradition, March 24th, 8 to 4:30 in Franklin County, Virginia. And that one is facilitated by our Greater Roanoke and New River Valley SBDC. And you can save the date for an event on November 17th, being facilitated by our Laurel Ridge SBDC. Details will be announced at a later time for that one. I will drop the registration link into the chat momentarily for the upcoming March program. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of expected participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We will address them at the end of the session, time permitting. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Chris Funkhauser, founder of 8-Bit Consulting, an AI automation consultancy based in Winchester, Virginia. Chris brings over 20 years of hands-on operations experience across restaurant management, medical office administration, and entertainment services. In addition to business ownership, he serves as adjunct instructor and AI strategist with Laurel Ridge Community College Workforce Solutions, where he teaches AI strategy through Leadership Basecamp and Institute programs and webinars. Chris works with small businesses to figure out where automation and AI make sense in their day-to-day operations and where it doesn't. Please join me in welcoming Chris Funkhauser.
Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. As she said, my name is Chris. I am with 8-Bit Consulting. I'm excited to be here with you guys today to talk about AI in agriculture. Now, full disclosure, I am not a farmer. Sheila and I were kind of discussing this beforehand. I am basically a nerd who loves AI and loves to help businesses understand this big tech beast that we have, and to try to help them understand also how it could possibly actually fit into their operations, right? Sometimes AI for AI's sake is not always the correct answer, but we'll get into some of that here soon. So let me go ahead and share my slide with you folks. So, as she said, AI tools for Virginia farmers, what works, what it costs, and where to start. So, as she said, I have a large background in operations management, restaurant management, healthcare, all different kinds of things. And the reason that that's important is because when I'm looking at a piece of technology, I'm not just looking at whether it's cool or, whatever, is it the new trend, however that may be. I'm looking at it to see, does this actually work, when you're busy, when you're drowning in all of the mundane tasks. So I'm going to try to focus today on some tools that are available right now, what they do, get into some costs, and then also we're going to discuss the issue of internet connectivity and how that can affect some of this as well. Let's get started. Let's look at some numbers. Agriculture is the big thing for Virginia. An $82 billion impact, over 41,000 farms registered statewide, averaging 230 acres. But everyone here knows that there are farms as small as 5 acres, all the way up to the large operations. But nearly half of all Virginia farms, about 48%, are family operations, are small farms, small businesses. And that is what we're going to try to focus on a lot today. The reason is because, when you're talking AI and at technology in agriculture, a lot of times that is steered towards the big guys, the 5,000 acre operations with full-time, 35 full-time staff, that kind of thing. I want to talk about the stuff that's going to work more for our small family operations today, where, the owner is the operator, the mechanic, the bookkeeper, and then has to make dinner at 7 o'clock, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of that today. One of the things I really want to talk about up front is the connectivity issue that we have in Virginia. 30% of the largest US farmers report poor or no internet access. Up to 12% have none at all. In Virginia specifically, around 133,000 addresses remain unserved by broadband. And they're not really evenly distributed is the other issue too. It's concentrated in, western, southwestern Virginia, also some in the northern neck, which is where a lot of the agriculture happens to be the most active. If you're farming in like Frederick County somewhere, you might be fine. If you're in like Highland, Northumberland, you might be looking at, satellite internet as your only option. And honestly, until recently, satellite was very expensive and very slow. Some of that has changed, and we will get into some of that. But the point is, any honest conversation about ag technology really has to start with addressing this gap. So one of the things that's changed is a lot of these tools now actually work offline. So you can get, for example, let's talk about some of them. GPS guidance is offline. Field mapping can be offline, okay? And also record keeping as well can be done offline. Scouting apps can be done offline. What they're going to do is they store the information on the phone or tablet. And then when you do get to that connection, that's when the uploads are happened and everything is synced that way. I mean, it could be the Wi-Fi at the house if you have Wi-Fi at the house and not out in the field. It could be when you get cell service. However, that works. That part as well that's when they actually sync, get everything taken care of, and make sure that all your data is correct. So, like I said, satellite internet used to be crazy expensive, right? And it was awful. We talk about Frederick County. I actually happen to live in Frederick County and am one of the addresses that is not served by broadband internet. Okay. So I have gone through all of these tools over the years to try to make sure that I can have connectivity at my house. So I've tried the satellites, I've done the hotspots, I've done all of this stuff that I'm talking about today. So I do have firsthand experience with it. And like I said, satellite internet now is miles ahead of where it was years ago. You can get plans starting as low as $50 a month, and with some specials, you can even get the hardware itself as low as $89. I mean, like 3 years ago, it was a $500 dish and $150 a month for speeds that were close to dial-up, right? Another nice thing that is happening is Virginia does have broadband funding rolling out. Okay. They are trying to get most unserved areas online by 2027 to 2028. As far as I know, that is still happening. That money is still there and still flowing towards that. So hopefully, sooner rather than later, this will roll out to people that do not have access to this. So there are a couple of free tools that you could go out and actually try right now. Most of these work offline and have free tiers that you can use just to try out a piece of technology if you haven't. I would assume at some point, or I would assume at this point, that some of you have most likely tried one of these apps, maybe the disease identification apps or something of that nature. If you have, I'd love to hear about it more later. And that's something we can pick up maybe in the Q&A if anybody has some real world experience with using some of these on a day-to-day basis. Now, obviously, let's caveat this. If you are using a free tier, It is not going to be as robust or as trustworthy necessarily as going to, say, a paid tier. Paid users of subscriptions get priority over free users. So you want to make sure that if it's something that is actually affecting your operations, maybe staying on the free tier isn't the best option for you long run. But initially, when you are trying it, this is a great way to kind of, get in there. So one of the first ones we're going to talk about is smartphone crop disease identification. Okay. It's probably one of the most impressive free tools that's available right now. You point your phone at a plant, you take a photo, and then the program uses an AI to identify the disease and give you like different treatment recommendations. It can cover 30 crops. Most of them are their Virginia staples, including tobacco, corn, soybeans, tomatoes, and grapes. On supported crops, they run about a 98% accuracy, and that number was found by independent research. These apps like this, there have been over 10 million downloads of these worldwide. So farmers on every single continent are using this. Now, is now here's the practical like reality of this, right? Is an app that you're going to point at this going to replace your extension agent? No. And if you don't know what your local cooperative extension agent is, that is a whole nother conversation to have, but something you should definitely be aware of. It is a free service and it is amazing. Our extension agents are well trained and absolutely amazing at what they do. So it is definitely worth looking into. But these apps are never going to be a replacement for that. Your extension agent knows the soil, the microclimate, can also figure out your land's history. But I mean, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, if you notice something is going on, your extension office isn't necessarily open, right? And you're not going to, start blowing people up in the middle of the night, but it might be nice to give you an answer to give you some peace of mind. This kind of stuff can help with that. So just keep in mind, anything that I'm saying, I am not saying is a replacement for your expertise, your knowledge, or the expertise or knowledge of the people around you and the services that are available to you as well. So, like I said, most of these are free as far as the cost goes. It does need brief internet to upload the photo. So that is where your internet requirement is going to come. So for example, if you don't have internet out in the field, you take a picture. When you get back, you open the app, it uploads to the server, and then the server analyzes that and then sends back any diagnosis. But like, some of the advisory content that they offer in these apps are available offline, like some of the treatment guides and pest information. Once you've loaded it and have copies on your phone, you can look at those anytime. The real key point of this is that, it puts diagnostic capability in the hands of basically anybody with a smartphone. Like I said, 98% is not 100. So, you can't take its word completely, but it is a great starting point for trying to figure out what kind of issues you may be having. Um, and it's a meaningful change for people that don't have plant disease experts on dial, right? So this is a good way and a good entry point on how to get into some of this. Here is another really cool thing that have also come across doing research for this. GPS tractor guidance on a smartphone. So GPS has come a long, long way in the years and years. I mean, we all used to have a personal GPS device. If you wanted to have GPS in your car, you were paying for maps, yada, yada. Now it's all different. There are multitudes of apps that use GPS at its heart. The thing about GPS is GPS does not require internet. That is based off of the GPS signal. So that does not require internet in order for that to function. So what happens is what you do is you mount like your smartphone, tablet, something like that into the cab. and it can give you parallel line navigation. It basically helps you show where to drive to minimize overlap on your passes. Now, why would that be a big deal? Well, if you're minimizing overlap, you're not spending as much fuel as you need, and you also are saving some time, right? Every overlap is invisible money. Every time you overlap spraying, you're double applying the chemicals. Every time you overlap a planting pass, every time you overlap any pass, you burn extra fuel, extra time. So on a 200-acre field, even a few percent overlap can add up really fast over a season. So this is one of the biggest single like precision ag savings available to small farms. And the basic versions of these apps are free. These type of apps have over 500,000 downloads, and it's not experimental as much at this point. People are using these every day. One more thing I should have said in the beginning. You will not hear me call out any specific apps or any specific services or anything of that nature. I do not sponsor, I'm not sponsored by any of these people. This is purely educational, right? So, you can search out these type apps, go by your ratings, talk to friends, talk to, other farmers, other people in the agriculture business, and get their feedback as well before you move forward on any specific product. And that would be my biggest recommendation. But if any of you are wondering why I'm not saying go download this app right now, that is why. So I just want to make that very clear now before we move on. So, like I said, reducing overlap over 500K downloads. So it is becoming widely adopted. So, as far as these go, you've got, free basic apps with paid premium tiers available. Most of your apps that are free are going to have that premium tier in there, right? That's going to want you to pay to keep them running. And a lot of times they do make it worth your while. The cool thing about these apps is you don't really require internet. It runs off of GPS signals that comes from satellites and they work everywhere. Now, if you are using phone GPS, anybody that's used your phone GPS and looked to see where you are and watched your little dot wander around in a circle around where you're standing understands that it's only about 2 to 5 meters that it is going to be accurate within. If you're using different types of, hardware, things like RTK hardware, those can get your accuracy down to sub-inch levels. And if you're really trying to get into this and really want to get down to maximum efficiency, that's where you're going to be. But like I said, we're talking about the basic free level. Most of you already have a smartphone. So this is not going to be an additional purchase for you as far as that's going to go. So, like I said, as far as the GPS guidance goes, I think this one honestly is one of, like I said, the best ROI that you're going to see for your money when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like I said, every double pass, anything like that is costing you time and money. So this is a great way to minimize some of that, and then also not to have to invest in like internet infrastructure, right? If you don't have satellite now, if you're not interested in something like that now, then that's not something you need to invest in for the GPS ones. Okay. And let's see here. So we're going to talk a little bit now about some of the crop management apps that are out there. So what these are free apps for like planning plantings, record like treatments, tracking harvests and yields. And then also they can help you track income and expense tracking, give you reports. And these are fully offline, free with optional in-app purchases. Once again, if it's got a free tier, it's got a paid tier. Okay. So make sure, like I said, that the ones that you're searching for are the ones that give you the functionality that you really want out of it. Okay. So notebooks, right? We all like to use our notebooks, and notebooks work great for this kind of stuff. But A notebook can't search. It's not going to generate a report when a lender asks for yield. It can't back itself up, right? So, and it's not going to be able to share data if you don't, with these kind of apps, it makes that really easy. It's same information that you're already tracking, and maybe you're already using another tracking platform. Like I said, I was trying to touch on all of the possible free ones to give people the option to just kind of see what's out there in case they haven't taken a foray into technology on their farm at all. So these can really help you manage some of that back end, which sometimes we're all not the best at, right? But this can help take some of that load off of you, make it so everything is easy to find, easily trackable, and ready to go. Field management and scouting apps. So these are going to give you field maps that have GPS directions. It's useful when you've got like seasonal help that doesn't know which field is necessarily which. Product label library, so you have spray records and safety data at your fingertips instead of in a binder. Team collaboration, so everyone on your operation can coordinate, sees the same information, and also these are all fully offline as well. They're built specifically for the reality that patchy reception is part of daily life in agricultural areas, right? We've already went into the connectivity issue. That is the main issue when it comes to this kind of stuff. So these apps, these past three groups that we have talked about, are all fully offline and can keep you from having to worry about huge infrastructure, but can really help you manage some of the things that might be slipping through the cracks. Crop monitoring, right? Scouting, task management. You can get 3 years of biomass history from satellite imagery. So you can actually see what trends are in your fields over time. It's actually a really cool feature. And then once again, team communication. So when looking at all of these apps, I know there's all different kinds, there's all different levels, and I already see some Q&A questions coming in about wanting specifics and things of that nature. And I will go back and I will give you a couple of specific examples there at the end when we do go into that. Um, One of the things, though, is a lot of this for you guys is going to be actual trial and error, right? I'm going to give you a recommendation or two on a couple of these, but a lot of them you're going to have to try to see what it is that actually comes up and what works well for you, right? None of these are going to be really perfect cookie cutter solutions. It may have one may have a feature that you like better, one may work a little better for your operation, right? So that is something to keep in mind that no matter which one of these you try, don't try to make your operation fit to the app. The app should fit your operation, if that helps at all. Let's also go a little bit into general purpose AI. And that's your general purpose AI tools, right? So we're talking like your ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. These aren't farm specific tools. These are just general purpose AI chatbots, LLMs, assistants, however you want to call them. But there are farmers that do find real use for them, right? Crop rotation planning, right? Describe your fields, your soil types, your history, and ask it to suggest a rotation, right? Now, one thing that if any of you have ever actually used one of these LLMs that I would like to caution here is that you also need to make sure that you are verifying any information that you receive, okay? um, LLMs and those type of chat bots and AI assistants do have are known to what is called hallucinate from time to time, and that means just basically make information up, right? So any information that you're getting from this, you need to also independently verify before you just go out and start, just taking Chat GPT's advice on everything. Independently verify this kind of stuff. Analyzing soil reports. You can paste in the numbers and ask it to explain what they mean and what amendments that you might need to consider. One of the great ways to use an AI that way is to take something complicated and have it broken down to you in a way that you can understand. It's great to have things that are technical explained to you if you don't understand how they work. It's also great to, if you are trying to explain something very technical to somebody that doesn't understand it, AI is a great way to help you do that also. Identifying pests from descriptions, right? So I'm seeing small brown beetles with a stripe on the wing feeding on my soybean leaves. What is it, right? So it's going to go through its knowledge, look for all of that, and try to figure out what ways it, what beetle could it be? What is it? What type of plant is it? Yada, yada, yada. So it can use its knowledge base to also try to help you figure out some of this kind of stuff. Drafting grant applications. I actually did a whole hour webinar on using AI to help farmers write grant applications. This is a really, really underused part of AI, in my opinion. Now, one of the caveats, again, you can use this, it can help you, but you're not going to be able to take that draft and turn it in to get the grant approved. Okay. This is a draft of the application. It helps you process everything that you might need. You can give it a copy of the grant, give it information about your farm, and then it can tell you whether or not you fit the grant, how to write your application so that your farm stands out when they are awarding the grants. So that is a really, really good way to use AI. Like I said, I did that. I did a whole webinar for that on the Loudoun County SBDC. Answering agronomic questions, right? Not all of us are able to do this and able to get these questions answered easily and readily and maybe at 2 a.m., right? So what these will do is they're a good way to get a start. Like I said, though, verify. Trust but verify. We all know that, right? Verify all the information that you're getting from an AI to make sure that it is actually accurate. Okay. And then it can also help you research regulations and programs, right? If you're unsure about this regulation, that regulation, what it means for your farm, these are really good at explaining things like that and helping you break that down, right? So these do require an internet connection. These you cannot do without internet. There are ways, but it's not feasible for what you all are trying to do. These will require internet to run, but if you have your computer, whatever it is, your phone, as long as it's connected, you can access these chat bots and ask these kind of questions. AI versus extension agents, the research. This was interesting. Once again, not knocking anybody. Please don't come at me. I love our extension agents. I use my local extension agent for my own personal gardening. So this is nothing against extension agents, but in a peer-reviewed study, AI responses to farmer irrigation questions were rated higher quality than the extension agent responses. I thought this was interesting. This is not necessarily across the board. This was a very independent study, but it does show that these AI bots can give you some valuable information, right? A quick answer, things of that nature. Never a replacement for your extension agent, but definitely can give you a great starting point, especially if you're just completely in the dark about something. So let's recap here on the free tools portion. So we've got the AI crop diagnosis, we've got the GPS guidance, we've got record keeping, field management, monitoring, and the general purpose AI, right? So AI crop diagnosis, partially offline, GPS, record keeping, and field management full offline, and a couple of them do require internet from time to time. So as far as it goes, for the free tier, there are a ton of very, very useful apps that you can start messing around with today and see what you think and see if any of them work well for you. Let's get into the stuff that is starting to cost some money, okay? So we're going to start talking about some of the sensors, okay? Some of these sensors are about pardon me, around 199 to $500 depending on the sensor. So let's start off with the soil moisture sensors, right? These are actually pretty low level tech, but what has happened is they have been integrated in with AI to help come up with full plans, right? So it's like a Wi-Fi soil moisture sensor. They're about $199. You don't need a subscription or anything like that. You buy it, you don't have any fees or anything like that. It runs for a long time, like almost 2 years on batteries, and it logs data continuously and it can send alerts to your phone. So if the soil moisture level drops below a threshold you set, you would know about it. When it's not on Wi-Fi, it's going to store everything locally and then it uploads the backlog whenever it connects. So it's not losing records or anything like that. Um, so made in the USA. A lot of these are $199 entry point. Like I said, I'm not going to point you towards any specific one of these. These ones I would like for you to research, look into it. But like I said, there were several that I found that were at the $199 entry point. So well worth looking into and well worth considering for your farm. So is it going to be as good as one of these $2,000 sensor systems? No, right? And I'm not saying that. If you're going out and spending that much on a system, it should be much better than when you're spending $199 on. So meter your expectations, right? Like if you know people that have these massive soil moisture sensors and things of that nature that are thousands of dollars, the $199 one's not going to be the same, but it's a great entry point. That's a great way to see if it's even something that you would consider using on your farm. Multi-depth sensors. Now, these ones these ones around 400 to 500 bucks. It really just depends. Most of them are around 97, 129, just depending on what it is. But this one is going to get you more information, okay? It collects soil moisture at three different depths, temperatures at different depths, air temp, humidity. So you're getting like 6 data points basically from one more thing. So 30-second installs, these are really nice, really easy. The sync it later strategy is what has made a lot of these AI tools and ag tools really stand out because they're only using very, very little information as far as like data amount storage. They can work offline all day and then sync everything in the evening, right? So, like your field maps, GPS, crop monitoring, soil test, the calculators, local record keeping, all that kind of stuff. None of that requires internet, but then can be up, but while you're using it. But then once you get to internet, that's when everything is going to sync, right? So, it's definitely something to think about. Another one of the things that is kind of interesting is something that's called low rug WAN. And what that means is long range WAN, right? So it's a localized area network, okay? That if you have zero cell coverage or anything like that, what these do is you can slowly put these gateways out and make your internet stretch as far as you need it to, okay? Some of these gateways are, 150 to $500. Like I said, it really just depends on how high you go with that. Each sensor has a battery. Your device costs per year and around about 600 bucks for a 5 sensor farm that could get you a lot of coverage, right? So that is also something to look at. There are tons of providers out there that provide this service. Like I said, I don't endorse anyone because I don't speak for any one of these. One of these, I do not use a long range WAN system now. So, but like I said, this is something that is available and is pretty easy to roll out. If you can connect it to your internet, you just set up one further out, another one out in the other part, wherever you're trying to keep that connectivity. It can help you do that. So one section I wanted to talk about was drones, right? Drones have made a really interesting impact on farming, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, how that looks, and what some of the costs that are associated with that kind of thing would be. So basic scouting and imagery, anywhere from 5 to 10K. Now, a lot of this is going to depend on the company, right? Some companies may do initial things at a lower rate, depending on what you're going to want to do. Other drones, mid-range, 10 to 25,000 per drone, but some of these can do precision spraying and mapping. So a drone flying around your farm, mapping out your fields, also precision spraying where needed. And then commercial, full autonomous flight, AI processing. These are in the, you know, more 25 to $50,000 price range. These are not cheap, but these are fully autonomous. You give it a set of directives and it takes care of the rest. It flies itself on a pre-programmed route and the software can identify issues automatically. So, a $15,000 drone it's not something to scoff at. So let's talk about that in a little bit. So, drone ownership math, okay? For most small operators, to be honest, this is kind of where I would consider starting with kind of stuff. Drone ownership may not be the starting point, okay? 12 an acre to run, okay? People break even at about after it has covered about 980 acres, right? So savings are documented though, 20 to 30% reduction in chemical use because you're spraying precisely. 75 to 90% reduction in scouting labor. So, I mean, if you have a farm that's 500, 1,000 acres, some of this could save you a lot of time and having to, travel all over the place when you can send a drone to check things. So, for most small operations, this is where I would recommend this is hire somebody that has a drone. Okay. They average around $16 an acre. So some are lower, some are higher, right? You don't have to worry about any licensing. You don't have to worry about a whole big upfront cost, but it does give you a really good practical entry point for some small operations that want to see what drone data looks like before fully diving into what this could look like. So, with this, there are also several larger investments that are available. Like I said, I wanted to cover all levels. So, I wanted to go free all the way up, just because one, I think this kind of information is fascinating. And also, I think it can be extremely helpful to a lot of farmers in Virginia that are looking to grow and change their operations. But also, as this technology gets, more and more commonplace, it will get cheaper. So some of these things that are larger investments and things of that nature in 5 to 10 years may not be nearly as large of an investment, right? So it's definitely things that I wanted you all to keep on your radar. So that way you know exactly what could be coming and what you maybe could be working towards as far as that goes. So we were talking about the simple little GPS apps, right? So those GPS apps are the ones that you kind of map out your field, you put the phone in, you're driving around, okay? There are true GPS guided equipment, okay? That is where it really, really gets up there. Okay. This is not just a smartphone or a tablet or something like that. This is GPS guided equipment and is part of the foundation of precision ag. Okay. GPS guidance shows these pieces of equipment where to go, where to operate. Okay. And it eliminates overlap across all inputs. And then it doesn't require internet. Now, 70% of our large farms are already using some kind of auto steering mechanism, right? We talked about this in the beginning. A lot of this tech that has come out and has been pushed and, talked about is because it is pushed out to these large 5,000 acre plus operations, right? Not our small farms. only about 9% of small family farms have adopted it, right? So this is a pretty big gap and one that, I think as this technology gets cheaper and easier to maintain and easier to install, um, I think more and more small farms will do this. And man, what a time saver, right? When I think about AI, right? I don't want AI creating art and doing all of that kind of stuff or writing books or making music. I think AI should make people's lives easier. And if you have a GPS guided tractor that is doing its job without you having to sit in it, that could be huge. Imagine all the things you could do with that time. So precision spraying is another one of these big things that's coming out that is not cheap. Okay. The thing that's really cool about it is the numbers that come from this. It can save up to 50% average herbicide reduction. I mean, think about what that means for a chemical budget. If you could reduce the amount of herbicides you use by 50%, that would be huge, right? Across more than 5 million acres of documented use, the technology saved approximately 31 million gallons of herbicide mix in 2025 alone. That was a measured use. That was not a projection. Soybean yields actually increased an average of 2 bushels per acre because less overall chemical on the field means less crop stress. And it's been validated in trials across 7 states, including here in Virginia. And so pricing can be anywhere for $1 per fallow acre to $5 per in-crop acre. So it just really is going to depend on what you're doing, how much you want to cover with this kind of stuff, and whether or not you actually think this is going to be a time saver for you. So let's, like I said, 31 million gallons saved, 2 bushel yield increase. There are retrofit options. So Sheila and I were discussing another one of these. One of the things that they are doing is rather than forcing farmers to buy a whole new tractor, combine, whatever piece of equipment it is, figuring out ways to retrofit this equipment with these precision sprayers and things of that nature. So that way the investment ceiling is a lot lower than spending $100,000 on a new tractor, right? So it can save some money. A lot of these will work with just about any sprayer. They can be retrofitted on a boom with spot spray capability. And then, like I said, you're not having to buy a whole new piece of equipment when this happens, right? So these are some things that may be available now to you. Like I said, they have been running several studies to make sure that this is viable, but it is working. This is one of those things that is actually really exciting, right? Any person that can, any way that we can use less herbicides, pesticides, whatever that be, is so much better for the environment, soil, crops, everything. So this is really, really exciting technology that I think, over the next 5 to 10 years will be a lot more commonplace than it is now and a lot more affordable as well. Smart irrigation. For operations using irrigation, these numbers definitely deserve some looking at, okay? 20 to 72% water savings. That is a wide range because it really depends on your current system and how, far from optimal that you currently are, right? But even on the low end, I mean, 20% water savings is significant. 20 to 30% yield improvement and up to a 50% energy savings. And you can see payback and some places have seen payback in 3 years. Okay. So, if you are paying for water, paying for the energy to pump it, the ROI on smart irrigation is among some of the fastest that you will see. Okay. So if you were looking for immediate bang for your buck, this is one of those ways that it's going to be. So how does smart irrigation works, right? So soil sensors feed real-time data to a system that predicts your crop's water needs based on soil conditions, weather, and even the growth stage of the plant. Okay. Instead of irrigating on a timer or irrigating because it's Tuesday, you irrigate because the data says the crop needs water right now, right? One of the other benefits of this is also leak detection. Leaks in irrigation systems waste 20 to 60% of water before it reaches the crop. Slow leaks, hidden leaks, whatever it is. Smart monitoring can help catch leaks and things of that nature as far as that goes. So, like I said, there are some easy level, low level. The $199 soil moisture sensor maybe paired with a programmable irrigation timer is technically a smart irrigation system, right? It's very simple, but it's data driven, right? So there are all levels of this, but like I said, you're not going to get the results that you're going to get out of a higher dollar system as you are from the $199 system. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff. Another cool thing is AI livestock monitoring, right? And this is pretty commonplace in the large farms already. So what they are doing is they don't need wearables or anything like that on the livestock, but you do get AI analysis. It can analyze back posture, stride, walking speed, movement asymmetry, all kinds of stuff, right? So one of the things about that is that you get mobility scores sent to your phone, but the impact, right? Sometimes these AI are detecting issues with the livestock up to 4 weeks before a human sees it by measuring the distance in their strides, like you said, like we said, measuring back posture, how they're behaving, things of that nature, and can notify you that something might be off before you're even catching all of that, right? As of now, there are about 100,000 cows worldwide that are AI monitored, right? Um, so that is kind of a cool number. So we have a large flock being monitored, and they are having a lot of success with this. Um, Now, it can, by estimates, it can cost a dairy farmer $18,000 a year in decreased yield if you have a lame cow, right? So a lame cow is producing less milk, breeds back slower, and is more likely to have to be culled early, right? So a camera system that catches lameness a month early can help pay for itself very, very quickly. So let's kind of do a little bit of an overview of a few things before I get into some Q&A, and we talk a little bit more about hopefully a couple of specific use cases that you guys might be interested in. So remember, under the $200 a year mark, we have several free smartphone apps for disease ID, GPS guidance, field management, and record keeping. And there is a soil sensor out there that's about $199, right? So pretty low level. Free is about as low as you're going to get. So it is worth giving some of these things a try. And like I said, I will mention a couple, but I really feel like you guys should try several just to try to get what fits right with you, right? They're all designed, they have their own features and things of that nature, and some may speak more to you than others. Now we're talking about, the 1,000, 3,000, farm management software, multiple sensors, maybe a premium GPS subscription, satellite internet thrown in there if you're going to want to do that. $5,000 a year plus, spring subscriptions, drone services, that RTK GPS guidance that we were talking about that gets you down to within an inch, livestock AI monitoring, right? So all levels, all points of entry, and all different kinds of tools, right? That's another thing I hope you all noticed about this is that, there are AI technology is stepping into all aspects of farming, not just, irrigation, not just plant, disease identification. I mean, AI livestock monitoring is is also going to be one of those things that will save farmers a lot of money in the long term. if they can tell things about their livestock without having to spend that time, you know, inspecting every animal. Not that you don't. But as humans, we're going to miss things, right? So a second set of quote unquote eyes. I understand that AI doesn't have eyes, but a second set of eyes on anything is not a bad idea. So I did kind of want to wrap up with a couple of things that I did find that are not as widely being used, but are in the very, very early stages of development and what that is going to kind of look like. So one of them is fully offline disease detection. Now, you remember earlier we were talking about the apps that need brief internet connection to upload the photo. The next generation of these will not need that at all. So researchers are testing smartphone apps that diagnose 38 plus diseases at about a 99% accuracy with zero internet. All the processing happens on the phone itself. No server, no upload, no connection. This is actually being field tested now. And when it ships, because it will, this is going to ship, it will remove the connectivity barrier for one of the most useful and easy to access tools that we talked about today, right? So this is going to be really cool and is going to change the game, right? 133,000 addresses in Virginia still with no broadband. Not requiring broadband for another piece of this is going to be huge. So this is some really cool technology that these people are working with, being able to run the AI locally on the smartphone. So I'm really excited for this one. And this was one of the ones I felt like you guys should actually get excited about as well, because it is one of those that will be out there. And I actually look to see it in the next 6 months to maybe a year for the first ones that start to roll out. But those are really exciting and really cool. Another cool thing, and it kind of sounds like science fiction, but it's definitely real and it's definitely working, is laser weeding, right? So what happens is where the computer, okay, is using cameras and it identifies individual weeds and then high-powered lasers zap them, right? No chemicals, no soil disturbance. And some of these systems are capable of killing up to 100,000 weeds per hour. Like that is insane. And it is a very, very cool technology and could eliminate a lot of the need for some of the herbicides and thing of that nature that we have to use. Okay. I mean, these machines, though, right now are prohibitively expensive. They're too expensive for most individual farms. Leasing models are starting to emerge. And as with everything else, technology, that cost curve is starting to come down. So for like organic operations, anyone looking to reduce like chemical dependency, herbicide resistant weeds, this technology is definitely something to keep your eyes on, because as it gets cheaper and more accessible, it will definitely be one of those things that I think really kind of revolutionizes the way that people think about agriculture and the way we use herbicides. Um, and then autonomous tractor retrofits. So there are, obviously there are new tractors and things like that being built that self-steer, all that kind of stuff, already have that on the tractor as part of the equipment. But now what they're trying to do is they are making it so that we can retrofit current tractors to run. Like I said, again, technology gets cheaper rather than expecting farmers to completely reinvest in whole new tractors and pieces of equipment. They are allowing them to now be retrofitted at a reasonable cost, right? And this is still kind of early in the development. Right now, the dominant model is what we call human in the loop. So machines just are handling repetitive tasks. People control the decision making, right? Eventually, they will become autonomous to where they are out there managing your fields for you and handling things that you wouldn't have to think about. So that's kind of some of where this stuff is going, right? Today's tools, though, are really the foundation of this, okay? Like I said, it's going all kinds of places, and I'm not even 100% sure all the ways that AI or upcoming technology can change farming. Farming looks completely different now than it did 100 years ago, than it looked 100 years before that. I mean, we could even say now farming looks completely different now than it did 15, 20, 50 years ago, right? So the face of farming, the face of agriculture will keep changing as far as the technology goes. And some of this is worth keeping track of because some of this could definitely make your life easier and also help you make things more efficient on your farm as well, right? So, like I said, start with some free apps, okay? Data collection. If you are not collecting data about your farm, that is one of the easiest ways to get started on this. Start collecting information about soil, right? Start collecting information about crop yields, harvest, if there are diseases, what types of weeds you have, all that kind of stuff. Start keeping data on all of this. So that way, when you do start to roll something like this out, or you do start to consider this, you see if it's even viable or really necessary for you. And then that's where you scale what works, right? Don't jump into the $100,000 investment because it sounds cool, right? What you want to make sure is that it's something that's actually going to work for your operation, and then something that will actually be used by you, any staff that you have. Otherwise, an expensive tool becomes an expensive tool that doesn't do anything. Okay. So that is where I am going to stop for right now, right? So what is going to happen is I think I'm going to stop my share, and I think that Sheila has a slide she would like to put up right before we go into some of the Q&A.
How about we go Q&A first because we're almost on time at
Yes,
time, and
ma'am.
I'd rather get through that first.
I can
Um,
definitely do that.
since you were looking at those, you want to, we only have a couple questions, but I want you to pick what you think would be most advantageous for everyone to hear an answer on
Yeah,
in our
absolutely.
session. Okay.
Absolutely. Let me
So
pull
if
those
you could
up.
just
We
read the
do have them.
question and then answer, that would be super.
All
You know
right.
more than I do. So,
No, that's okay. And so, hey, real quick though, thank everybody that took the time out to sit and listen to me ramble on about technology. It is not as exciting to everybody like it is to nerds like me. So, thank you all for taking the time, and I really do hope you got some value over that. So, I'm just going to start going through the questions real quick. I'm not going to type out the answers, okay? A
yeah.
phone GPS. So, what phone GPS is basically, it is your cell phone has GPS built into it, okay? There is a GPS guidance. One of the apps that is easily accessible is called Field Bee, FIELDBEE. Field Bee is a very cool little tractor navigation system, and they have a free tier. Okay. There is also Tend, which is also another one that has a free tier. Okay. So look into those, please. Also remember, I'm not endorsing any of these. So please, if you try this app and it's awful, you do not get to yell at me. Okay. So these are just some of the examples that I've seen that have some decent reviews, but without knowing everything about you and your operation, I might not be able to speak to that. Okay. Crop management, Plantix is a really good one for that. And that one also has the disease detection in it. Plantix is probably the easiest one that I would recommend that you would start with for pretty much everything. Plantix is free. It's available on all of the app stores and everything like that. Tend, which I also just said, also is a farm management app that I think does have a free tier. All right, so let's look. Miriam, I actually really like your questions because you are on it today. What happens when there's weather disasters like flooding or drought? Does it let you know ahead of time and suggest solutions, if any? A lot of that is going to depend on that, right? There are different systems that do take in weather forecasting, air humidity, whatever sensors you can set up, it will use that information in order to process that, right? So a lot of it depends on what information you are giving to the AI. Now, AI is not a prophet. All right. Like it's not going to be able to predict the future. If a drought comes out of nowhere that nobody saw coming or things of that nature, AI may not make that connection when we didn't. Right. So a lot of this is, like I said, it's not really a prophet. So fiber animals, the same kind of thing. These can be used for all different levels of that as well. Okay. So there are all different levels of all of these different apps. And yes, I did speak a little bit about crops and briefly about dairy cattle and things of that nature. But there are levels of these and different segments of each of these apps for each different crop, animal, whatever it is. I was just trying to highlight the kind of the big ones, but please feel free to jump into that. Potentially work for hydroponics. Yes, so some of these do potentially work for hydroponics as well. It just really is going to depend on what level of that you're going to use and what type of information you want to get it. Now, a lot of the stuff that I looked at was soil based, right? But that does not mean that hydroponic based apps and things and sensors do not exist because I know they do. So those type of sensors can still be tied into a lot of these. I do not know the specifics on that. So I can't like definitely say that. Crop management apps, I'm sorry, Rania. That one is Tend. I would look at Tend and also Plantix. Those are definitely good. As far as my presentation, I did to apply for grants. What I can do is if I forward that to you, Sheila, do you do a post
I
webinar
do. There'll be a
email?
follow-up email and I can include it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I will send that over. I do think it's a really great presentation, not just because I did it, hey, but I do think it had a lot of really, really good, valuable information to you guys. And I mentioned a
Anne's
few.
question, I think, is regarding the GPS app
Okay,
that
so that
Anne
one
and
is
you were
like
talking about.
Field B or Tend, either one of those. And then, like I said, Plantix is another easy low level one. I recommend all of you try because that one is going to show you the most immediately. You're going to go outside, you're going to take a picture, and it's going to tell you some stuff. So I would recommend starting with Plantix because I think that's a really fun and easy way to do that.
Great. You did it. We're 2 minutes after, but I think it was worthwhile. My slide was just promoting Agripalooza. Everyone's going to get information about that anyway, so we're all good. I just want to thank you, Chris. Oh my gosh, amazing information that you shared today. You were wowing me all along, and I don't even have a garden. We talked about that. I can't grow anything.
Thank you so
But
much.
yeah, Chris, thank you. I want to thank everyone who did join us today. Remind you, you are going to receive an email with a link to both this recording and to the slides, and that link that Chris was just talking about for the AI presentation. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. And as a reminder, this webinar and other SBD resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we do hope to see you all at our next session. Take care, everyone. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye.